So we took a short break and we're back with a very interesting panel. Our panel now will focus on shipping in the post-COVID-19 era. Has the pandemic brought changes that will stay? We have with us a panel of 5 principals who are going to be discussing the topic, and we have live from Hong Kong, Benjamin Wong, who is the head of transport and industry. Benjamin has been a great friend and supporter of Capitaling, and of course, he's a global statesman for the industry. And we're delighted that he's going to moderate this panel out of Hong Kong. I will let you introduce our panelists and take over. And thank you to all of you for being with us. Tremendous to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. It's great to be with Capitaling again. Always with very high quality and very interesting panelists and also audience. Now, it's my honor to moderate this panel with all the panelists being Greek. So I will go through the name briefly first, and then later when we have the discussion, please, each of the panelists, please give a brief introduction of you yourself and also the company. Now we have Jerry from Capital Product Partners, also Marilee from Franco, Compania, Naviera, and then John Michael from GoodBulk and also Transport Maritime, and Calypso from AM Nomikos, and also Stamatis from Seanergy Maritime. Now, before the actual session launched, we were talking about, actually, the last time I was in Greece, in Athens, was actually in February this year. My last trip out of Hong Kong, actually. And I always say Greek and also Chinese, we share a lot of commonality. From the ancient history to philosophers to now, long dinners and also wine, and I cannot forget about the ouzo and also kyros mastiha, those fantastic. Now, so enough of that, so I will jump into the question, and I would like to start with Marilee. Now, one very hot topic for the crew change. Now, IMO mentioned that there are 400,000 crews out there in the sea being stuck even after their contract's over. And then we also have another 400,000 onshore waiting to be on board of the ships. And of course, those that are stuck on board, they are stressed mentally. And then those that are stuck onshore, they are stressed financially. So I would like to ask Marilee, as a Greek ship owner, how do you cope with the crew changes these days? And do you have any need for additional safety measures? And on the safety measures, do you see them staying on after the pandemic is over? Please, Marilee.
So hello, good morning or good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for this invitation and this opportunity to join the panel and this Capitaling Forum.
Marilee, you speak a bit louder, please.
A bit louder, okay. Sorry, okay. So I thank everyone and you, Nico, for inviting me in this panel. And I will introduce our company, Franco Compania Naviera. That is a family ship management company. And it was founded by my father back in 1948. It is headed today by brother Nicholas, who is the CEO, and myself being the managing director. Franco Compania Naviera operates in the dry bulk sector. And although in the past we have operated in other sectors as well. And Franco manages vessels for the family, for joint ventures to which the family has created in the past and at the present. And we also we provide a platform for ship management covering a full scope of technical and commercial services. So that's it about the company. So regarding the crew changes, the huge, tremendous problem that we all faced these last few months, I think I will give you the short version because the large version is an ongoing huge issue for everyone involved. So our short version is that we realized that we were going to face problems with the mobility of our crew pretty early on, and we focused at the time, not exactly knowing what was happening and what was going to happen. We focused and tried to check and monitor the contracts, to see what contracts were overdue. And we prioritized the necessities, we prioritized the seafarers who had to leave the vessels as soon as possible and try to cope with that. Although we focused very much on that, although we never imagined the magnitude of the problem. So then we had debates and question marks whether we should introduce in the vessels test kits or not. We finally decided not to provide the vessels with test kits. We enhanced very much the communication, and this is key here, I believe. The communication was continuous with the vessels. The impact on the seafarers and on the company crew department was tremendous, and same thing is for all crew departments, but I must say that at times it was very, very difficult because they really had to face tremendous difficulties everywhere and the deadlocks all the time. So regarding what else we did, we trying to find out what the necessities really were. We understood that their number one priority was communication with their families ashore. So we provided free internet. We provided them more recreational amenities, because also taking into consideration that they were deprived of the privilege of going ashore. We added a lot, having cooperated with the telemedicine 24/7 company. We provided more medicine, pharmaceuticals, and trying to foresee whatever could go wrong, and trying also to make sure that we could deal with whatever possible on board, given that they couldn't go, given that there was a big possibility that they couldn't go ashore in case of a medical problem. We had a handbook, and I won't go into the details of what the COVID handbook had, but it was pretty much detailed with procedures, guidelines, changes in case of casualty, and when other people came on board, when the seafarers would have, how they had to prepare to come on board, etc., etc. And we arrived at around the end of May, when we managed to do our first changeover with tremendous difficulty, but we managed. And having gone through that and having done a few other changes meanwhile, we arrived at the June, July, where we thought we had seen it all. But little did we know, because we sold the vessel in time, so we had to deliver a vessel end of July. And this is where we really learned to expect the unexpected. And it was unbelievable what was happening from day to day. And in the last, as the weeks went by and we actually had to deliver the vessel, we had to change 3 times the delivery place, as it was meant to be in Singapore. Then Singapore closed, then we were preparing for Hong Kong. And just 24 hours before reaching Hong Kong, we find out that Hong Kong closes down. So we had to go to Manila, the Philippines, and there again, it was a battle all over the place because everyone was going to Manila. So I really don't think I should spend any more of your time on that, but I just want to add, and in answer to your question, Benjamin, say that what I think amazes everyone is although there was such a coordination, because I needed to say that during all these months and from very early on, there was a big communication and information feedback given from the companies and from for instance, the Shipowners Association, the UGS, the Greek Shipowners Association, the Maltese Shipowners Association, to EXA, and from EXA, the European Community Shipowners Association, to the European Union, to try to coordinate and try to make them understand the magnitude of the problem. So Intercargo as well, I must say that, and other organizations. So it's unbelievable to see how, although all these organizations cooperated, exchanged information, tried their very best to inform the European Union, there was awareness by, I think, June, July. There definitely was awareness, and there was media coverage. Even the Pope gave a speech on this huge problem. And it's a matter of basic human rights, basic workers' rights. These people were deprived of their rights, and we didn't have the help needed due to inaction and lack of coordination of the states. It always was a very big problem in the Far East. Key countries like Japan, like Australia, like Canada, like South Africa, also were very difficult to do the changes there, or to give the help needed for the preparation. The embassies were closed, or if they were open, they needed too much time for the visas. So this inaction and lack of coordination of the governments, which I think in Europe it was the first area where it became more feasible and easier to perform through changes. So one wonders why and what can be done about that. I don't know. And although I said the short version, I think I talked too much. Very quickly, I would just say that some of these changes affected by the companies and bio companies, I think, are there to stay, like the communication. Some will probably not stay. I forgot also to mention that I think a very, very important issue here was the trust and the good captains that we had, that we managed to really manage the problem and deal with difficult situations and not have mental health issues, which again, I didn't mention. There's so much which I didn't mention, but is a very, very major issue that presented itself. I understand that the amount of suicide has gone up 2 or 3 times during these years. I think I will have to stop. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilee. I totally agree with you that all the parties have to work together to come up with a solution. a few months ago, we relaxed the crew change restrictions, but then the cases started to come in, and then we had to tighten it again. But I assure you that the government, actually, the Port Authority is looking at the situation and try to do necessary adjustments. So hopefully, with time, then actually we will be able to have different parties to be more conducive in terms of the crew change. Now, we've covered the soft asset of the shipping industry. Now, I would like to switch to the hard assets, the vessels, and very expensive ones. Yesterday, I was having lunch with a ship owner here in Hong Kong, and he's talking about the new buildings underway in Japan. And obviously, he is not able to send over the shipbuilding and also technical people over there to the shipyard over there in Japan. So he has to engage local consultants over there to help them to manage the process. So now I would like to switch to Calypso. Now, for you, actually, with the situation, then how do you manage, for example, new building dimension or technical inspection of your ships, and whether, for example, the use of technology, would it be useful, or are you using them to help with the process?
Well, let me first of all introduce the company. We are Nomikos Transport Maritime Agencies, a company established by our parents in the 1950s. At the moment, I'm chairman of the company, with my brother Marcos being the CEO. And we have the third generation on board, which is my nephew and my son. So it is a purely family business for the time being, operating dry bulk carriers. We around 50 vessels. We do manage third-party vessels, and we have various joint ventures and small stakes in a few containers, but basically the core business is the dry bulk. Now, as to your question, I think that, as Marili said, a lot is being done, or almost everything is being done remotely at the moment. I think for the shipping industry as such, it was not such a big hiccup or surprise, because by the nature of the industry, we do a lot of things remotely. Our everyday business is ship to shore. So it just enhanced and brought forward a lot of changes one would have liked to push through, that sometimes meet with resistance within an organization. But in this case, they had to happen much faster. So that's as far as communication with the vessel goes. On to your question for new buildings, we did take over a new building. We had our superintendents who were there, who were stuck there when the lockdown occurred, and they were on board, and really, you know, it was tough for them being away for so long, but it was very helpful for us. On the other hand, there were things like the sea trials, which somebody else would have gone from the office here, and that was conducted with three-way cameras, etc., etc. We had quite a few dry dockings, again using local companies, and guided and in constant communication with the office. We took delivery of a second-hand vessel where we had to, in order to take the delivery and do a virtual closing, because everyone was closed, banks, etc., etc. But the major point here is that we took delivery of the vessel, maintaining the crew of the sellers, which entails risks in other cases, but I think another point about our industry is that there's a lot of trust that has built up between our organization and charterers, sellers, and the other parts that make up the industry. And I think this was a chance to capitalize on reputation and good name from either side. Another thing that we did do was that there was a court hearing, and that was also virtual, with remote cross-examination. So we've basically seen it all, and we've seen that it can happen. And I think it can happen with, as I said, this the two or three basics of shipping, which is the trust, the good name, and the fact that we are a 24/7 industry. So it was just, you know, full ahead, capitalizing on all these things.
Right. Thank you, Calypso. I think one thing that's mentioned by you and also Marilee is communication. And of course, right now we are using the internet, digital communication, but I think shipping is a very people-oriented industry. So hopefully next year we could meet with each other in person. Now we've covered the soft asset and also the hard asset. Now, of course, shipping industry, actually, it doesn't live in a vacuum. So there are lots of peripheral stakeholders that is very important. So now I would like to switch to Jerry. Now, Jerry, taking a more macro view on the peripheral stakeholders, for example, well, it's not peripheral, for example, charterer or the government, that's us, or for example, the union or the media, then how do you see the whole situation of this? Are you getting, are these stakeholders helping in the whole situation, or are they complicating the whole matter? Please, Jerry.
Thank you, Benjamin. Let me quickly introduce our company. I'm the CEO of Capital Product Partners. It comprises of 13 containers and 1 dry bulk vessel. I'm also director of the Capital Maritime Group. The total group consolidates a fleet of just short of 80 ships, and that's across VLCCs, Suezmaxes, Afras, product tankers, as well as Capesizes, handy bulkers, post-Panamax containers, feeders, and LNG carriers. I have a fairly, if you want, good overview of what's happening across segments. And I think the conclusion overall is that shipping has been left to its own devices, owners effectively, as shipping and seafarers perform a very important, very critical role in global trade. It's the most important probably chain when it comes to delivering goods. But what we saw, I think, over the last few months is that despite seafarers being first-line workers, the same with doctors, nurses, cashiers, cooks, without them, I think many of us that were in quarantines for months, we wouldn't be able to enjoy many of the goods that we were able to get to our homes with one-click delivery, right? But I think we did leave, as societies and nations, we did leave the seafarers to their own devices. Effectively, we the ship owners, did whatever we could, and I think Marilee summarized very well all the different challenges. We reinstated, apart from enhanced medical remote support, also psychological support 24/7 with specialized people. You could enhance communication of seafarers to their families with whatever media that you can. Obviously enhanced pay, but in the end, it did not solve the problems. governments, the media, authorities. I think there has been a lot of talk about the issue, and we have come across many articles in the press. You have seen a couple of conferences as of late, the IMO, the ITF, Ship Owners Association, but still the problem very much remains today. So starting with the governments, firstly, there is no uniform treatment with regard to how you can rotate crews out of vessels. So it might be completely different policies between two countries. And secondly, there might be also variation between regions or states within the same country. The ship owner or the ship manager is called upon to, at any given time, to have an exact view of what's happening. But I think what is even worse is that this might change from one day to the next. You mentioned Hong Kong, and we had issues where we were just ballasting towards Hong Kong for crew rotation, and then Hong Kong suddenly closed. And then, for example, you had to go to another port and then incur the 14 days quarantine rule, which means that you had additional waiting time, not to mention the cost of the ballast. So you would expect that, I may add, there's a third element. There is limited international flights. So let's say that you do get your crew out within the specific window that a regional authority will give you. Say, sometimes they will tell you within 24 hours you have to rotate your crews. But if there's no international flight, you cannot really do it. So it's a very complex logistical problem that ship owners are being called to solve without any help from the government, because there's no stability. There is variability, and then the charterers, with very few exceptions, they're completely unwilling to understand what the problem is and chip in. Owners are being asked to incur the cost of the ballast, of the waiting time, of the additional waiting outside the port, if, for example, the rotation has taken place. While you might actually see charterers pull the rope towards the other way, because they might at the same time require you to have fresh crews, seafarers that have not stayed over a specific period of time on board the vessel. So I think here all stakeholders have kind of dropped the ball. Ship owners have done their best. But I think it's a very disappointing result for the industry. It does show that shipping remains a fragmented industry, and its voice is not heard. And in the end, I think, apart from the ship owners for whom it is mostly financial cost, the people that actually pay the price are our seafarers. So I think going forward, we have to find a voice. We have to find processes and plan for contingencies like this. I think what has happened, and is very much still happening, is not the right way of doing it.
Thank you, Jerry. Yes, I think the shipping industry is sometimes not noisy enough to bring the awareness to the industry, no matter is the situation right now, or for example when it comes to talents. So hopefully with this, then we will have a change of mindset and the way of doing things. Now, John Michael, I was reading some extracts from your previous interviews, and there are two comments of yours which I like very much. One is there are only 2 days of lockdown, one the first day and the other one is the last day. And then the second comment is that no new buildings. There are enough second-hand ships. If you need to find one, you can call me and I will be happily selling you one. And then we can make a lot of money together. So I've got two comments which I like very much. So I'm hoping that I will be able to get a third one this time. But that the question will be totally irrelevant to those two comments. Now, on the trade routes, have the trade routes been changed as a result of the pandemic? What's your comment on that? And please introduce yourself and also your company first.
Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm John Michael Radziwill. I'm the chairman and CEO of Transport Maritime. We are commercially managing about 200 dry bulk vessels from 50,000 tonners up to 250,000 tonners, also 2 Suezmax tankers. We are technically managing around 50 bulk carriers. Those ships are owned by around over 30 different entities, one of which is GoodBulk and some others that I control too. So we're a third-party manager, but we also have a pretty good big amount of skin in the game. We believe in excellent outcomes in the performance of those assets, technically, operationally, commercially. In our thought partnership with all of the different entities that are represented by CTM, in understanding how global macroeconomies and our shipping markets are working, and then in the meaningful relationships in our strive for excellence. We really are big believers that if you have a common stride, you build strong relationships, and those strong relationships only strengthen that common strive for excellence. So going to your question, have trade routes been changed as a result of the pandemic? I would say not directly. Trade routes are affected by supply and demand, and supply and demand has been affected by the pandemic and the subsequent stimulus measures or economic measures taken by government as a result of that. But yeah, we don't think there's a direct link, but yes, they are linked indirectly.
Thank you, John Michael. Yes, and I'll go back and digest that better, and then maybe I can come up with a third one that I like. Thank you.
I'm not done yet.
Yes, and now actually I think we should be turning the direction a bit to looking ahead now, because time is running out first, and also it's always good to look ahead and think of recoveries. Now, actually, I would like to go to Stamatis first. Now, for the pandemic, most likely, obviously, we are seeing that is changing a lot of things at this point of time already. But then actually, we could also expect the changes is going to make to economies, countries, cities. Then what about the changes it will be bringing to the shipping industry? What in your mind that the changes would be?
Thank you, Benjamin. Well, good morning from my side. First of all, a big thanks and congratulations to Nicholas Bonosis and the Capital Link team that has managed to put together another virtual conference. All I can say is that I hope very, very soon that we can all be in the same room or in the same country, and we can interact, have a drink, and discuss real business in person, instead of being in front of a camera or like a hologram or something like that, which I don't think it's so counterproductive. Shipping is a business which is very capital intensive and very people intensive. And the more that you keep us away from, getting together, making business developments and making this beautiful industry even better, I think it's, it's counterproductive. But let's hope that we're all going to be, getting together very, very soon. In the meantime, I am the chairman and CEO of Seanergy Maritime Holdings. Seanergy is the only US-listed pure play Capesize company. We operate, as I said before, with a fleet of 11 pure Capesize vessels, and we transport mainly iron ore and coal, which we strongly believe is going to be the driver of tomorrow's infrastructure demand. I want to expand a little bit on John Michael's statement about the global stimuli and what is necessary for tomorrow's economies to survive and expand. It goes without saying that the world of tomorrow and the cities of tomorrow will not be the same as they are today. People cannot live in cramped spaces. As you know, Benjamin, in Hong Kong and in other big cities, you can have tens of thousands of people living and operating in a few blocks, in a few city blocks. It's going to be impossible, not just for the safety of themselves and the economies and their families, but also for the economy itself. Which means that the world of tomorrow and the cities of tomorrow will need to expand. A huge infrastructure drive is going to take place because of all this stimuli. The world will be wider and better. We will not be living in huge boxes of buildings, and we will not be working in huge boxes of buildings, which means that we will most likely see a very heavy infrastructure growth in housing, in development, and in expanding the world of tomorrow. it's extremely important to talk about that, because right now people are still focusing in how to resolve, the next day, the next week, or things like that. But what will happen if there's going to be another pandemic in 5-10 years? Is the world ready to sustain another $10 trillion of damages in the global economy? I don't think so. It's only going to take a few $1 billion of infrastructure growth, so the world can spread out. We can be safer if we, if we're not necessarily so close to each other. We need to be close, but not that close to spread the pandemic. So, fortunately, my generation has not gone through a war so much. And I'm talking about, most of the people attending in this kind of conferences. However, the disruption of the COVID-19, aside from the very unfortunate loss of human life, I think it's as close to a war as far as the global disruption in the economies are concerned. So this is it from my side, and happy to expand further later on.
Thank you, Stamatis. Yes, you mentioned about the global economic stimulus. And I think with the COVID-19, with the damage done to the global economy, for sure, all the countries and economies will be launching very sizable recovery measure for the economies. Now, I would like to throw the next question to the whole floor, to all the panelists on that global economic stimulus. How is it going to affect the shipping industry? And now, of course, shipping industry actually has got a lot of different segments, dry bulk, tankers, container. So please, basing that on your view and also your company, your experience, shed some lights to the audience out there. And actually, if I may, I would also like to bring in the elements of the talents, no matter it is the seafarers on the ships, or people that they are actually with you in the office. That what about the talents? How you are going? How would you keep bringing them on? Given right now is actually horror stories out there that the seafarers are being stuck on board and all that. So please, any volunteer for the first comment?
I'll go.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that the economics, I'm going to isolate dry bulk, which is what I know something about. I think so. Isolating that, I think that you've seen let's look at where the big economic stimulus has been, and that's been in China. And off the back of that, you've seen a big move towards infrastructure projects, and the government issuing bonds or enticing banks to lend more to fuel all this. And right now, I mean, the Chinese economy, from what we see, number-wise and physically, with all the ships that we're moving in and out of there, it's recovered. I mean, it's coming back, right? You have exports growing by 9.9% month on month, and imports growing by 13% month on month. For us, it's really it's been the iron ore, which has been the big story. The growth in that area of Chinese iron ore imports has been pretty substantial. And I'll go one step further and kind of wrap it all up. But I think in my experience, to start off with, if it wasn't for the Chinese economic stimulus, I mean, you would be seeing Capesize rates below OPEX, right? So it's had a very positive effect on the market. And I think that when other countries will start to follow, and that have already started to follow and will continue to follow, because it's a solution that's been effective, I think it will only be more beneficial for dry bulk shipping. Having said that, the Chinese economy is a very big economy, right? So when other economies come back online, we can't expect the same impact, but we certainly can expect a positive impact.
Thank you, John Michael. I said to the floor, to all the panelists, but it seems like the time flies much faster on my clock than reality. So I think we've got only half of a minute left. So I don't know whether there is any panelist who would like to make a very quick comment.
I would just say, you know, China, the energy, the clean energy, the climate change, which became obvious that is affecting the climate. Therefore, we need a shift to clean energy, which does require a lot of infrastructure. Something else that we saw on our vessels was that there was a lot of grain, rice, sugar transportation back in May. About 75% had to do with that, which again, China cannot afford a famine that haunts it from the past centuries. So that is something we've seen a lot being transported, as well as the change in habits, living more at home, spending patterns. We do not spend in the restaurants, but we spend on televisions and coffee machines and I don't know what, which probably have helped contain us. And just to what Jerry said about our voices not being loud enough, what I would say is that shipping is quite fragmented on the side of the owners. And I think that more consolidation, not necessarily on the asset side, but at least as far as organizations go, so that we can reach a common goal, which is good for everyone.
Thank you, Calypso. And I think that would be the end of our session. I knew we wouldn't have enough time with such a great panel, but I think we will have many other chances to talk freely, you know, over email, telephone, or next year in person. So this concludes our session, and thanks a lot to all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Nicholas,
much
for organizing it.
Thank you very much. Bye bye, everybody. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe.
Bye-bye.